بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يمنون عليك أن أسلموا قل لا تمنوا علي إسلامكم بل الله يمن عليكم أن هداكم للإيمان إن كنتم صادقين وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قل آمنت بالله ثم استقم صدق الله العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الكريم ونحن على ما قال ربنا وخالقنا ورازقنا من الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا ومولانا محمد وبارك وسلم. Respected elders, brothers, sisters and friends, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Jazakumullahu khaira for inviting me to this auspicious event. Very honored to speak at the fundraising dinner for such an important and fundamental and pioneering institution like MCC. And the thing that gathers us all together here today is one thing. And that one thing is the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with Islam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with being Muslims. As President Kamran, as he mentioned, the last few years there may have been decisions that people disagreed about, maybe strongly disagreed about, but unity was still maintained. Why? Because of Islam. And this is the greatest blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. Throughout the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions many things, many bounties that He's bestowed upon us. But only 2 times does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say that I did you a favor by giving you this or that. The first, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions a group of people who came to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And they accepted Islam. And they made it seem as if they were doing Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam a favor. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed, يَمُنُّونَ عَلَيْكَ أَنْ أَسْلَمُوا. They're trying to make it seem as if they're doing a favor by accepting Islam. قُلْ لَا تَمُنُّوا عَلَيَّ إِسْلَامَكُمْ. Tell them, no, you're not doing any favor upon me. بَلِ اللَّهُ يَمُنُّ عَلَيْكُمْ. No, Allah has done a favor. أَنْ هَدَاكُمْ لِلْإِيمَانِ. By guiding you to the truth. Allah has done you a favor. The second, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَقَدْ مَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ إِذْ بَعَثَ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا مِنْ أَنفُسِهِمْ يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ. Allah has done a humongous favor upon the Muslims by sending the last messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, a great messenger who recites the ayat of Quran and teaches them wisdom and how to apply the Quran in their lives and purifies them. Allah has done a great favor by making us from the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So we say alhamdulillah for that. We say alhamdulillah that we're Muslims. And we say alhamdulillah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made us from the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And what is the thing that defines this ummah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that sets us apart from the ummahs of all of the previous prophets? Perhaps we could say that there's a few words that we can apply, that we can say apply to this ummah. Number 1 is vision, and number 2 is purpose. Vision and purpose. These are things that have defined this ummah from the very beginning, starting with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and applying to each and every individual in this ummah. Now what do I mean by this? And where does this vision, where does it apply? How should we channel our vision? How should we channel our purpose? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Quran, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. The only reason that I created mankind and the jinn is for what? To worship. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, هُوَ الَّذِي يُنَزِّلُ عَلَىٰ عَبْدِهِ. He's the one who revealed upon His servant. And who is the servant? That servant who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned is such a great blessing. هُوَ الَّذِي يُنَزِّلُ عَلَىٰ عَبْدِهِ آيَاتٍ بَيِّنَاتٍ. Clear signs. Why? لِيُخْرِجَكُم مِّنَ الظُّلُمَاتِ إِلَى النُّورِ. To take you out of the many different darknesses and distractions and tests and trials, ila nur, to the light, to the truth, to focus, to yaqeen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us this. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he tells us, how does a person achieve excellence in religion? And Jibreel alayhi salam asked him that question. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he responded by saying that أَن تَعْبُدَ اللَّهَ كَأَنَّكَ تَرَاهُ, that you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as if you see Him. And if you can't reach this state, فَإِنَّهُ يَرَاكَ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching you. So now when a person sees this, or when a person hears these ayahs, read these ayahs, and hears these ahadiths, and they ponder upon it, they may come to the conclusion that I should have a personal vision for myself. And that's true. Look at Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. What was his vision? What was his purpose? It was to connect himself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like no one else. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, despite being the most busy person in human history, what would he do? He would stand up at night for 1/3 of the night, 1/2 of the night. For more than a half of the night, he'd stand up 2/3 of the night. He'd stand and pray and cry to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this attitude, it also permeated to the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala. Look at Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. What was his vision? Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu's vision was, I want to help this deen however I can. Whenever Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam needs anything, I'm going to be there. To the point that before the hijrah, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he purchased animals, he purchased supplies, so that if Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam were to ask him, if Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam were to ask me to go on hijrah, I'll be ready to serve this deen. Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu, from the time he was a child, it was his vision, I am going to be the greatest servant of Islam. So anytime any opportunity was put in front of him to serve this deen, whether or not on paper he seemed qualified for it, what did he do? He would put himself forward. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is talking to his family, to the Quraysh, and he's inviting them, who's going to help me? Nobody helps him. And now a 10 or 11-year-old boy, Ali radiallahu anhu, he stands up and he says, I'm with you. I'll be with you. And if you look at Ali radiallahu anhu's life throughout this, anytime there's an opportunity to serve the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he volunteered, he put himself forward. Look at Khadija radiallahu anha, because we mentioned how instrumental sisters are to this community and to all communities. Look at Khadija radiallahu anha, the moment that her husband said that this happened to me, she made it her goal and vision in life to support this deen. I'm going to comfort him. I'm going to take him to the right people. I'm going to give my wealth. I'm going to give my health. I'm going to sacrifice whatever I need to do to help this deen. Right? To help this deen. To connect myself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Look at Umar radiallahu anhu. And this one, I might have to go on a little tangent, but it's relevant to what we're talking about tonight. Umar radiallahu anhu, he made it his goal in life that I want to be the closest to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I want to have the highest place in Jannah after Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And he knew that if he had to do that, what did he have to do? He had to be Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. This was his vision, this was his purpose. Fast forward to the last year of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's life. And he's fundraising for the Battle of Tabuk. And he's saying, bring whatever you can. So Umar radiallahu anhu, he said, I was happy at this time. Why? Why am I happy? Because I'm doing better than I ever have been doing financially in my life. And Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, I know he's not doing so well. So I can finally beat him. So Umar radiallahu anhu, what he does, he takes half of everything that he has, to the point that he takes one of his wife's earrings as well. Of course with her permission. And he brings it to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. A lot. And this is after he's been promised Jannah. This is after Abu Bakr's been promised Jannah, Uthman, Ali, and all of the 10, and all many other Sahabas radiallahu anhum ajma'in, they've been promised Jannah. This is the last year of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's life. And now Umar radiallahu anhu comes with half of everything he has. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam asked, what did you bring? I brought half of everything that I have. Then Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu comes sometime later. He has a vision too. He has a purpose too. And he brings not too much, less than Umar radiallahu anhu. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam asked him, what did you leave behind? He said that I left behind Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Meaning that even after having promised Jannah, been promised Jannah, he brought every single thing he had and he gave it in the cause of this deen. Why? Because that fit in with his vision. So that's, we should keep that in mind, inshallah, when Hafiz Azam comes up. So now, the question now though, is this enough? Is it enough for me to be a pious person? For you to be a pious person? Is it enough for me to go to Jannah? Let everybody else do what they have to do? Let people be the way they want to be? Is it enough for me to go to Jannah alone? And the answer to this is a resounding no. So this vision has to be expanded. It can't just be about me. This vision, this purpose that we have as Muslims, it has to expand. So who do we look to? Again, look to the life or look to the Quran first. These ayat that I read at the beginning many times, they're quoted in khutbahs. And a person will say that, yeah, the purpose for our creation is what? Is to worship Allah. But look at the words Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses. Every word in the Quran is there for a reason. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I didn't create man and jinn for any reason except that they, all of them worship me. Not just that I worship Allah, not just that you worship Allah, so that they, all of mankind and all of jinn kind, they worship Allah. هو الذي ينزل على عبده آيات بينات ليخرجكم من الظلمات إلى النور. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He sent Rasulullah to take food out of this darkness and bring them to light. You, all of you, not one person, all of you. So now look what Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would do. Because if anybody was promised Jannah, it was him. What did he have to do? If it was just about getting to Jannah alone, if it was just about being connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam could have relaxed. If that's all that Allah wanted from us, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, I'm sent. Yet Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he went through beatings. He went through being expelled from his hometown. He went through being insulted. Right? Now imagine how you feel if somebody for one day insulted. They say you're crazy, you're this, you're that. Now imagine having to go through that for years at a time. What will that do to a person mentally? How much mental anguish will a person go through? Yet Rasulullah ﷺ kept going. Rasulullah ﷺ was promised Jannah, yet he would stand up at night praying tahajjud and saying, Ummati, Ummati, Ummati. Who? Other people besides for him. People who weren't promised Jannah, he would stand up and he would make dua for them. Why? Because it's not just about him. He would go out because his vision included others. Look at the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala. How many were there? 120,000, give or take. How many of them are buried in Medina by Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? 10,000. 10,000. Why? If it was just about a connection with Allah, personal connection with Allah, not worrying about anything else, why did the Sahaba leave Medina? The most, Makkah and Medina, the two most spiritual places in the world, the two places where you could do the most ibadah and be rewarded the most for each salah that you pray. Yet the vast majority of the Sahaba, more than 90%, went out and left Medina, left Makkah and died in other places. Why? To spread this deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In fact, Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says that one thing that fools people is that they don't realize that there's two sets of fara'id. One is those things that are fard, that are obligatory on every single individual, right? For fasting, praying salah, giving zakah, hajj, etc. But he said there's a second level. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He makes fard upon specific people. Every individual has certain things that are fard upon them based on the abilities that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed them. So a rich person, they have a different responsibility than a person who's not rich. They have a different obligation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A scholar, they have a different obligation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than a random person. A person in a leadership position, they have a different obligation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than a community member. So our vision has to be, what do I need to do? Who do I need to help? And resoundingly, when we look at all of these things, we see that it needs to be extended to the ummah. Now let's look at Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, some of his most difficult times in his life. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was stoned on the day of Taif, to the point that he bled, to the point that he passed out. And Jibreel alayhi salam came, and he said that here's the angel of the mountains. If you want, he'll crush the people of Taif. He'll crush them right now for what they did. What did Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam do? Was his vision restricted to himself? No, he said, my purpose is that everybody gets hidayah. So he said, I hope that their children at least become Muslim. If they don't become Muslim, their children will become Muslim. SubhanAllah, that came true. And not only that, the first army that brought Islam to the Indian subcontinent, they were from that very same town, led by Muhammad bin Qasim al-Thaqafi, who was from Taif. You see, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, his vision was, I hope that their children will accept Islam. And now look, many people here may be Muslim as a result of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's vision at that time. Famous hadith in Bukhari and Muslim, when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was once praying in front of the Kaaba. And the leaders of Quraysh, Abu Jahl and Uqba bin Abi Mu'ayt, they took the entrails of an animal and they threw it at Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam while he was praying. And it was so heavy he couldn't get out of sajda. So his daughter Fatima radiallahu anha had to come and remove it. And imagine how you'll feel at that time. A daughter is seeing her father go through this. What did Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam say at that time? His eyes were on the prize, on this vision. He said, don't worry, there will be a day when this message of your father will enter every single house in this entire world. The message of your father, at least, maybe everybody may not accept, but that message will reach every single house in this world. So you see, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he always had a vision, he always had a purpose. And then based on the circumstances, he would have to tailor it, and he would change what he was doing for that specific time, again, to what? To achieve that goal. But if there's no purpose, and there's no vision, you're going to be running in the dark. You're going to be doing one thing today, one thing tomorrow, and you're not going to be getting any closer to where you need to be. Now coming to this community, you know, when I saw this topic, I was like, subhanAllah, it seems that this topic is describing the founding fathers of this community. This community over 50 years ago, mashallah, right? Like, I wasn't born here, but I know a lot about this community. And this community has done a lot for me. And I have family here as well. But over 50 years ago, a group of brothers and sisters, they said that it's not enough that we come to this country and get rich and live a comfortable life and just do our salahs at home and just preserve our Islam however. They realized that there will be no way to preserve this religion. There will be no way to share this religion with those who are not born Muslim unless we have a bigger vision and a bigger purpose. So this group of people, who are all professionals for the most part, professionals who are struggling financially, who struggled to make ends meet, they made it their vision that we are going to preserve Islam and present Islam to the future generations. And the fruits of that, of the efforts of Muslims from this organization, I think can be said without exaggeration, can be seen in every single state in this country. You will have people who are imams in Georgia and in Michigan and in this state or that state whose grandfather or grandmother used to teach Sunday school at MCC many years ago. You see that Brother Kamran, he mentioned that the curriculum that was made by Brother Abdullah Ghazi, that spread all around the country, right? So many things came from this group of individuals. Each of them are, subhanAllah, like you see, the Sahaba radiallahu anhu, how they had, each of them had a unique quality. It seems that these people who founded this masjid, each of them, because this vision, it propelled each of them to maximize the qualities that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them, so that this community that we have today can be flourishing. But now, the thing that we have to ask ourselves is, again, as Brother Kamran mentioned and Brother Amjad mentioned, many people have passed away in the last years. This generation, perhaps we can even call it a golden generation. May Allah preserve those who are with us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them a long life. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always protect them from being dependent on anyone. But we see they're living. They're getting older. And so now who's going to carry their vision forward? You know, we love to point at statistics, and we love to say things like the fastest growing religion in the world is Islam. The fastest growing religion in America is Islam. Yes, it is, but why is it? Of course through the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but along with that, it's a consequence of the vision and the purpose of these people who put this organization together, who decided that we need to present Islam to the next generation. So Islam is growing, yes, but it's a result of a group of people's vision. Now, if this vision dies, if we allow it to just go on autopilot and expect that I'm not going to do my part, that I'm not going to have a vision for 20 years from now, then 5 or 10 or 15 years from now, along with this news that you're going to get of Islam being the fastest growing religion in America, Allah forbid, you'll also see that Islam is the religion that's losing the most adherents. People who are born in this country, they're leaving the deen, and we've seen it. We're seeing it. As imams, we see this happening. And why is it? It's because perhaps part of it is due to a lack of vision, due to tailoring and adjusting to the circumstances that we're dealing with at this time. So today, mashallah, after 2 years of having not had this dinner, we all are together, and it's every single person's responsibility here. Part of your responsibility to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to share in this vision, share in this purpose, to allow Islam to flourish in Chicago and throughout the country and throughout the world for the next 50 years and beyond. To produce individuals who will allow it to keep going. Allow individuals who will make it such that, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it such that none of our children ever leave this deen. That all of our descendants till the day of judgment will be upon this deen, and not only that, will invite many others to Islam. Will be ambassadors to Islam. Jazakumullahu khairah for your time. I make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless this community, continue to guide this community, and allow this community to flourish for decades and centuries to come. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.